Angie?
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. I was just turning on the recording so that for anyone that misses it, we'll have the recording posted to our YouTube channel. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Angie Sura. I am the VP of Compliance for Navigate HCR. If you've not attended one of my prior webinars, we are excited to continue our Compliance Corner series, which we do once a month, and we try to pick relevant topics based on what time of year we're in, or what's going on in the world. Sometimes, we don't necessarily get a choice. It's what's happening, or what is most important. And because ACA reporting is right around the corner, and I'm actually going to just stop my videos to keep my bandwidth good. ACA is right around the corner. We are officially in fourth quarter. I don't know about you, but I have no idea where this year went. And quite frankly, I'm excited to get it over with. So with ACA around the corner, now I'm sure you've seen our messages, our emails, our posts about the IRS in true IRS fashion. On Friday last week, right about 4:15, they announced the extension to when employees are to receive or have postmarked their 1095 form for 2020 reporting. So the ACA stated that these forms go to the employees similar to when you send the W-2s. They need to be in the hands of the employees, or at least postmarked by January 31st. Well, the IRS has extended that. At this point, I think every single year they do an extension, but we never want to assume until they officially announce it. And if you didn't see the notifications, they did indeed announce it. So you have about a 30-day grace period from when you normally would need to get those forms out. Now, they have not extended the date in which you need to have your filing transmitted to them. They don't often ever change that piece of it. So with that being said, I wanted to spend today for the topic at hand to talk about measurement. Measurement is extremely important when you have a population of part-time, or as the ACA calls it, variable hour employees. Now, although you may hire an employee part-time, that's all well and good, but you still need to keep an eye on the number of hours that they work. Especially this year with everything going on with COVID and all of that crazy and wild stuff going on in the world, we've got a lot of movement of employees. We have had layoffs, we've had furloughs, we have hour reductions, we have employees taking on more hours because someone else had to be off. So there's a lot of movement of your part-time employees. What that essentially means is, if you're not measuring them to make sure that you're offering them benefits, if they accrue enough hours, you could face penalties. So let's talk a little bit back to the beginning when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. So back in 2010, when this was passed, the rule was an employer cannot make an employee wait more than 90 days to be offered benefits when an employee becomes eligible. That's all well and good for those folks that you hire as full-time. Now, you may have chosen a waiting period that is first of the month following 30 days, or first of the month following 60 days, or you may utilize 90 actual days. But again, that's geared for an employee who's been hired with the expectation of being considered full-time, and I put that in air quotes. So what about the variable hour population? Well, the Affordable Care Act has a provision in it for the variable hour or part-time population. And it states that you cannot make an employee wait more than 13.5 months to be offered benefits should that employee be measured and deemed benefit eligible. So it's important that although we are all accustomed pre-ACA to full-time versus part-time. But post-ACA, we've got to be very aware of benefit eligibility. So it's less about the term and more about the expectation and the hours worked. So what is considered a full-time employee based on the ACA? Well, it's simple. It's an employee who works at least 30 hours per week on average. Also, an employee who was hired with the expectation of receiving all of the perks and fun that comes along with being a full-time employee. Well, what is a part-time employee? A part-time employee is an employee who works less than 30 hours per week on average. Well, why does this matter? Simple. Failure to offer benefits to employees who become benefit eligible will absolutely end up resulting in a fine from the IRS. Now, how is the IRS going to know that? Well, it's very simple. The IRS, if you think about all of the different things that they receive from you as a business, they get your ACA reporting, they get W-2s, all that kind of stuff. They tie everything together. But the key trigger happens when an employee goes out onto the individual marketplace and qualifies for a tax credit or a subsidy. One, they're not eligible if they've been offered benefits, but it's still very simple to happen. And two, the IRS, if they're giving, or I'm sorry, the marketplace, if they're giving a tax credit to an individual, they want to make sure that they really needed to give that tax credit. If the employee misstated something on their application, the IRS is absolutely going to get that subsidy back from them at the end of the year when the employee files their taxes. If the employer should have offered benefits and didn't, the marketplace turns that over to the IRS, and that issues an audit. So important to make sure if you have variable hour employees that you are tracking their hours, because in the event the marketplace sends a letter, you are going to need to have some sort of proof to send to them that you did your job as the employer properly within the scope of the ACA law. So, where, when, and how of measuring your variable hour population. So what we need to do is determine whether or not measuring your VHEs, or variable hour employees, is needed. So I've got 4 questions for you. Number 1, do you have employees who were not hired with the expectation of being treated as full-time employees? Yes or no? Do you have multiple shifts available? For example, do you have a day shift, a night shift, variable hour schedules? Or, are you a business that does not have a traditional 9-to-5 situation? Yes or no? Question 3, do you have multiple locations that employees can work at? For example, perhaps you have a restaurant business and you may be short a cook one night, so you use an employee from one of your other restaurants to float over to that location to fill in for a day or a shift or a month. So yes or no to that one. And then finally, do you know how many hours your variable hour employees actually work in a week or in a month? And if you answered yes to any of the above questions, you really should establish a measurement period. Now, the ACA gives us 2 methods to determine whether an employee is benefit eligible. You can use the monthly measurement period or the look-back measurement period. So the monthly measurement method is going to determine full-time status for each calendar month based on the employee's hours of service in that month. The other option is the look-back measurement, which determines full-time status for a longer period of time based on average hours. That look-back measurement method, you can select anywhere from 3 to 12 months in length. So the monthly measurement method is not the most common method, and it's actually more burdensome administratively because you have to look every single month, do an analysis, And in that month, did the employee work 130 or more hours? And if they did, they become benefit eligible for the next month. So it's a month to month to month measuring, which again, this is having employees possibly come on and off your benefits all the time. That takes a whole lot of effort, and again, very burdensome administratively. The look back measurement, sorry, did I go too far? I didn't. Okay. The look back measurement is really the most common and the easiest to administer. Now, I say easiest mainly because there is way less on and off of the benefits for employees. It's a little more streamlined approach. So essentially, the IRS created this look back measurement method as, we'll say, alternative to the monthly measurement, but I think it's a better method to measuring your employees. So let's talk about what it involves. It's going to involve 3 different periods. The measurement period, this is the period of time that you're going to count hours, also known as the standard measurement period. The standard measurement period refers to employees who have been with you for at least a full measurement cycle, or perhaps 12 months. Keep in mind, though, you're always going to have initial measurement periods for your new hires. So, depending on the circumstances, you could have an employee who's been with you for, a year or so. They're following the standard measurement period, but you hire a new employee in April. They're going to have their own initial measurement period. And then eventually they intersect. And again, as I mentioned in the prior slide, this can be anywhere from 3 to 12 months in length. Second period that you have is the administrative period. They call it optional. I've never run into a client that didn't utilize at least a 30-day measurement period, but your choices are 30 or 60 days or 0 days. And what that administrative period is, it's that length of time that you need as the employer to gather all your reports, make sure you know who needs to be offered benefits, and then doing the paperwork, whether you're still handling a paper method or you have a Ben admin system, you're going out onto the carrier, you have to turn paperwork into the broker, whatever. And if you have a large population, 30 or 60 days isn't a very long time. So it is a great period to utilize so that you can get all the paperwork accomplished and that employee offered and enrolled should they accept that. The third period in the mix is called the stability period. This is the period of time where coverage is provided and that the employee is allowed to remain stable on the benefits. Now, let's do an example, a quick calculation. The restaurant industry often always uses a 12-month measurement period. If you are doing a 12-month measurement period and you take the average number of hours needed of 130, that's 30 a week, we break it down to 130 per month. You multiply that 130 hours by 12 months, you get a calculation of 1,560. What that means is, if an employee meets or exceeds 1,560 hours during either the standard measurement period or their initial measurement period if they're a new hire, they become benefit eligible. As Alex mentioned, if you have questions during this is a high-level overview. Please pop them in the chat box. I am here to answer any questions that you may have about this. To date, this is still the most complex piece of the Affordable Care Act if there ever was one. This is not easy stuff. All right, let me jump back in. So why does this matter? Well, essentially, if the employee was employed on average at least 30 hours per week during the measurement period, then the employer must treat that employee as benefit eligible. So this rule applies regardless of the employee's number of hours of service during their stability period. And the next graph I'm going to show you will hopefully make those words make more sense. I'm a visual person, so I like to see charts and graphs. But here's the other reason why it's critical that you're doing this. There is a penalty for not offering benefits to employees who become benefit eligible. And just to give you a snapshot, I mean, penalties began back with 2015 reporting and every year since. Every year since, that penalty increases. So I've just listed 3 here, 2019, 2020, and 2021. That is per employee per year penalty. The IRS will send you a 226J audit letter, which I'm sure you've heard me talk about at length in prior webinars. That letter is going to tell you how many employees appear to have been benefit eligible and were not offered. That's when you're going to see this penalty. Now, this particular penalty gives you a grace of 30 people. So as of the 31st person and on that was not offered is where you're going to get pinged. This annual amount is not what you pay for every employee. They're going to look at it by the month. So perhaps they were in their waiting period and it was, you know, the last couple of months of the year that they should have been offered. They're going to ping you for those 2 months. If an employee was not offered all 12 months and should have been, they'll ping you for the whole year. So these numbers can get astronomical on a small population. So what does measuring look like? It looks like this. Now, this is a really, really simplified version of your standard measurement period, the little break for your administrative period, and then the stability period. The stability period, again, is, let's say, for example, we measured an employee who was variable hour. We chose a 12-month measurement period, and they achieved 1,560 or more hours in the measurement period that was, let's say, I don't know, January 1st through December 31st. Your admin period is 30 days. So that's the month of January that you get to do all your paperwork and get folks onboarded. February 1st is the start of their stability period. Now, while they're in stability, we're measuring the hours that they're working because they need to measure in again to maintain benefits the following year. So it's a constant cycle. This is a great example of measuring one employee. Imagine if you have a lot of turnover and you have a lot of new hires all the time. Your standard measurement period, as I mentioned earlier, is for your ongoing employees, those that have gone through at least one measurement cycle or been with you at least a year. If you have 15 new hires in a year, that's 15 initial measurement period calculations that you have to run. So this can get really out of hand. And to date, I've never seen a spreadsheet that could accommodate it. There are a series of algorithms that we use in our technology that calculates this stuff. All you need to do is, you know, we do the setup, we do the universal app, you start dropping in hours each month. Our reports are going to tell you exactly who's eligible and what date they need to be effective on benefits. Because a spreadsheet of this magnitude, and I'm an Excel girl, it gives me hives to think about it. So let's do a couple more examples just to give you a clear understanding. So we'll use me. Angie was hired January 15th of 2018. In 2020, she's considered ongoing. She's gone through a measurement cycle. So Angie gets measured in the standard measurement period, January through December, 30-day admin, and a 12-month stability. Now, when it comes to those 3 measurement periods, we talked about measurement, we talked about admin, and we talked about stability. Here's one caveat. The measurement period can be anywhere between 3 and 12 months. The stability period cannot be less than 6. So if you choose a 3-month measurement period, keep in mind, you're going to have 4 open enrollment sessions per year. And that's not to mention your traditional benefits open enrollment for your full-timers. If you do a 6-month measurement period, you'd have a 6-month stability, and you'd have 2 additional open enrollment situations. And we all know that one open enrollment time frame can be plenty. If you choose a 12-month measurement, your stability period is 12 months. All right, next example. Alex was hired March 15th. In 2020, she has to be considered in her initial measurement period. So in the prior example, we talked about our measurement period being beginning January 1st. Well, Alex wasn't hired until after the fact. So Alex is in her initial measurement period. She gets her own special initial measurement period timeframe, which would run April 1st through March 31st. Now, eventually, the ongoing and the initial will intersect because, again, we're constantly measuring. But the key to understand here is when an employee is in their stability period, even if their hours have tanked, you cannot remove them from the benefits during stability. They can remove themselves if they have hardly any hours and they can't afford the contribution anymore. They can certainly self-terminate from the benefits, but you as the employer cannot terminate them. Because keep in mind, we're measuring them while they're in stability period. And if their hours are low enough, come the end of this next measurement, they don't get offered benefits again. That's when you trigger the reduction of hours COBRA offering. Now, obviously, if they're in their stability period and, they terminate employment, whether they quit or they're fired or whatever, that can be a COBRA event, of course. But just reduction of hours during stability does not generate a COBRA event. They must remain on the benefits while they're in stability. Final thoughts on this. I know we just covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. I could talk for hours on this subject, but not everybody wants to hear that. So I want to make sure I'm highlighting the key aspects so that you guys get a little bit of a feel for what this entails, why it's important. So final thoughts, measurement is only necessary for your part-time or variable hour employees. Remember, if you hire someone full-time or you're giving them the expectation of being a full-time employee, then you're using your traditional waiting period. If you're establishing a measurement period for your variable hour employees, you need to document this in your summary plan description and distribute that to employees. They need to be told that this is going to happen. It can lead to actually a really favorable look for an employer to say, hey, you're part-time, so you don't get, all the fun and benefits of a part-time employee, but we're going to measure you because based on the hours you work, you may eventually become benefit eligible. And we measure you over XYZ number of months. We'll let you know if your hours exceeded the minimum, you will be offered benefits. And last but not least, consult with a professional to help you. I am the compliance guru. I am here to help you. But even if you choose another route, please, please, please do not try to go this alone. It is very, very complex. If you need help just establishing a measurement period, it's really a great idea, and I recommend this every day when I talk to clients or prospects. Set your measurement period up so that it coincides with your traditional benefit enrollment or renewal date. That way you're not running an extra benefit enrollment time in your course of business. So for example, if your benefits renew January 1st, you're already doing an open enrollment for your full-time employees. It doesn't make sense to have another enrollment period for your variable hours. So, there are some times when, yes, you need to do that, but as a general rule, establishing your measurement period to coincide with your benefit renewal is going to save you some time. And certainly our technology was, gosh, this was one of our flagship products, simply because it's so complex. It really takes some good technology to do it. So please don't try to go it alone. If you are new to measurement and that part of the ACA, welcome. And if you are an old hat at it, great. I hope it gave you a couple extra tips, or just refreshed your memory a little bit. So with that, I would love to take some questions. Alex, do we have anything?
Yep. Hello. Hi, Angie. Can you hear me? You went out that last, whatever you just said, that last
yes,
part.
I'm sorry. I can hear you.
Okay. Awesome. So we have a couple of questions.
Great.
And the first question is, but 30 hours per week is full time. Does that mean that this wouldn't be a part-time variable hour employee? Is that correct?
So 30 hours per week minimum is considered benefit eligible. Generally, when you're hiring a true full-time person, you're hiring them to work 34, 32, 36, 40 hours or more. They essentially make the distinction of 30 or more, full-time benefit eligible, less than 30, which would be 29 and a half or less, would be considered variable hour or part-time. Yes. I know it's verbiage that we used forever and a day. Full-time used to equate to 40 hours or 36 hours. So it's just a distinction of, even if you're not considering full-time versus variable or part-time, it's the expectation. And the expectation of full-time is generally way more than 30. But 30 is that threshold for the government. Yes.
Okay. It says let's see, let's go next. So what happens if someone leaves either December 29th, 2019 or January 2nd, 2020?
I'm not sure what you mean, what happens if someone leaves.
I think that was pertaining to a specific example.
Oh, okay. Let me go back to my examples. Okay, so if we're measuring January through December and we get all the way to December 31st, remember, if we have a 30-day admin, the actual effective date of coverage wouldn't start until 2/1. So if that employee terminates December 29th, they've left before they have finalized and finished their waiting period. Even if they leave January 2nd, yes, they would have qualified for benefits, but the effective date wasn't till February 1st. So they would not get offered either. Now, let's take this one step further. If they measured in, they became effective and enrolled in benefits on February 1st, and they quit on February 5th, then they get offered COBRA. I hope that helps. Alex, next question.
That is helpful. So how do you integrate the waiting period, or is that a part of the measurement period?
So let's define these so I make sure you're following me. Waiting period is really the term for, if you hire a full-time employee, how long do you make them wait before they're offered benefits? Now with the ACA, it has to be less than 90 days. So maybe you're first of the month following 30 days, first of the month following 60 days, whatever. It has to be less than 90 days to the day. So that's your waiting period. That's separate and only for true full-time, always over 30. They're hired with the expectation of being full-time. The waiting period for measurement, we don't like to call it the waiting period because that confuses people. Think of waiting period as your traditional full-time benefit eligible waiting period. Think of this as your measurement period. Same concept, just much longer and geared towards variable hour employees who may never become benefit eligible, but it's important that we measure to make sure we don't miss any. The IRS gives us a very tiny, tiny, tiny grace window of how many we can miss based on human error. Let me finish her thought here. The average 30 hours, what happens when the medical plan considers full-time at 20? Okay. If the medical plan considers full-time at 20, that's interesting. You could have an employer who their handbook says, we consider benefit eligible or full-time anyone that works 25 hours. If that's the case, then you need to measure accordingly. You just have a lot more people that would become benefit eligible. Alex, any other questions?
That's all I have so far. Does anybody want to unmute or hop on camera and ask any other questions? You know, we love to see your faces. So,
Oh yeah, I guess I can
anybody
hop
have
back on
anything
video.
else before we wrap up? Hi. Nope, I just got to thank you. So, okay, great. I will go ahead and wrap up. So, obviously, on the screen is all of our information. Make sure you follow us on all the social media, especially LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. We post a whole bunch of updates, all of the breaking information that you guys need to know. Angie also does a monthly podcast that follows along with our topic that we're talking about every month. Really great to listen to. They're pretty short blurbs, lots of good information, as well as all of our material that we're talking about right now, as well as any past materials are posted on YouTube, our public channel on YouTube. And we have also an entire COVID selection that we went through that's all posted there too. There are a couple different playlists. So we're really glad to have you all on. Please feel free, if you know anybody who wants to learn more or who you think would benefit from the information, share the information. We're always looking to educate and be a resource for all of our people. And we're really glad you're here. So if you have any questions, reach out to us, let us know. Our email's here, really easy, our first names at navigatehcr.com. And or message us on any one of those social media sites. We're all up on there. And we're glad to have you today. And we will see you same time next month, which is the second Tuesday of every month. And next month, Angie, do you have a clue about what we're going to be talking about?
I don't yet. I like to wait and see what's going on in the world because it's been so fast paced lately. I don't want to anticipate. Now, normally I would follow kind of the schedule of what our notices look like each month and try to keep the content flowing in the same vein. But good grief, you never know in this crazy time what may crop up for us to talk about. I will let you know as soon as I know. I love to keep everybody surprised. Again, we try to bring content that is relevant and timely for you guys. And please understand that aside from all of the traditional services that we offer, we do a ton of education. You know, we host these free Compliance Corner, and anytime there's something wild going on in the government that pertains to employees and benefits and HR, we always want to bring that out to you. But we do a lot of other things that, you know, you may not realize on the education front. Gosh, I was kind of chuckling with COVID. I didn't get to do hardly any speaking events this year, but I did 43 virtual events. So we do offer specific employee trainings. You know, New York, California, and some other states, you require sexual harassment. We train employees on those things. We give, for some of our events, HR professional designation credits for SHRM and HRCI. So, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff out there. We hope that you'll look to us as your compliance gurus. We're here to support. And I had one quick question. Let me answer. When are the spreadsheets due to you this year for ACA reporting? I love when someone's proactive, so thank you. I don't know the official date yet, but traditionally, the minute you are done with your December enrollments and terminations, you know, get that to us. As you know, if you've been with us for past years of filing, everybody comes out of the woodwork at the very end of the year and at first quarter of next year before the forms are due, and things get crazy. So if you know you start getting us your data by the end of December, that would be awesome. or within the first week of January or so, that would be awesome too. The sooner you get it in, the quicker we're going to be able to turn it around and get you to get that piece off of your plate for 2020. So with that, thank you so much. Thanks, Alex, for always keeping us organized on these events. Don't feel like you guys have to go it alone. We're here to help. Reach out. Thanks. Happy
Bye,
navigating.
everybody.